Hello everyone and welcome back to the Football Forecast. In today's video, I'm going to be going through how I think England can win the World Cup. Yes, I think it's possible. After 60 years, England might finally have another World Cup. But it's going to require a bit of luck, most likely, some quality players, but also some exceptionally good tactics. And I'm not convinced the way to do it is in a 4-2-3-1. I think England should actually shift to a 3-4-2-1 because I actually believe it gets the best out of this England team. I know that might sound weird, but just give me a chance to explain why. Starting off with the goalkeeper, and what I want from the goalkeeper is just pretty simple. I want a keeper that's competent at playing out from the back, but more importantly, a great shot stopper and reliable. Key word being reliable. I want a keeper that just delivers a good 7 or 8 out of 10 every week. I'm not bothered if the keeper delivers a 9 or 10, but then the next week delivers a 4. For me, that's how you get out of international tournaments, is with players like that, especially in positions in defence and in goal. So that's what I'm looking for, a really reliable keeper that's competent at playing out from the back. The keeper that Thomas Tuchel used for this Champions League run was Edouard Mendy, and Edouard Mendy has turned out to be a pretty shit keeper. But the keeper that Thomas Tuchel also had on the bench was Kepa. Kepa, even though you laugh at, was actually decent at playing out from the back, and that was probably his best attribute. Edouard Mendy's best attribute at the time in that sort of form was his shot stopping, and we saw what Thomas Tuchel decided to prioritise, the shot stopping, so that's what I'm going to be prioritising with this England squad, but it's also what I believe you should be prioritising in general. Here is the 6 keepers that I think England could potentially use. For every other position, I've looked to pick players where I think they could take a part in the squad at some point, or players that I think could change the game. I don't want to pick any players like Conor Cody, who I think are just good for the dressing room, because I just think that's useless. You might as well use your squad. But I don't think you can really do that in goal, because when are you ever not going to use your number one? So, looking at the first keeper, Sam Johnson, no chance. He's got no chance being selected. He hasn't been good enough, and he shouldn't be selected as an England keeper. Going on to Dean Henderson, I actually think Dean Henderson deserves a call up. I think he's a very good keeper, Dean Henderson, quite underrated, and he's also proved himself in a couple of big games and cup finals and against sort of the better teams recently. So I'm putting in Henderson at least in the squad. Moving on to Jordan Pickford, and I think this is guaranteed at least in the squad. He's so reliable for England, which was one of the priorities I had. He's also excellent with his feet. He's been a lot better for Everton than I think he's ever been, and I think Pickford's probably in his prime, and I think just keep picking him until he clearly drops off, and he's also very reliable in a penalty shootout. On to Nick Pope, and I'm going to go with in contention. I really don't think Nick Pope's going to be in this England team, and that's mainly because I actually think Aaron Ramsdale will be the number one at Newcastle come the end of the year, and I don't want a keeper who's actually a second choice at his club. I don't think that's good for the player. He's probably coming in low on confidence, and I don't want that. And then for James Trafford, I'm just going to leave him in emergency. I think if one of Dean Henderson, Pickford or Ramsdale goes down, I would be going to James Trafford next. I'm a little bit worried that he's not going to be playing enough for Manchester City because of the Donnarumma, but I would still rather have him over Pope and Sam Johnson, who also won't be playing. So who's the number one? I'm going with Jordan Pickford. Just so reliable, the best England keeper that I think they have, and that's who I would go with as my England number one. Moving on to the defence, where it will start to become a bit more obvious what I'm trying to do with this 3-back. And the position I'm really going to highlight is this left wing-back. What I want from this left wing-back is I want a player that can go up and down with pace and provide width for a team that won't have a lot of width without a player like this. This will allow England to still have someone that can get deliveries into the box for the striker, to the left hand, to the right hand, but also someone that's a real threat in terms of in the opposition box. Very similar to sort of what Frimpong did last season. I believe England have real quality in the squad and have a couple of players that could definitely fill this role if necessary. So then what do? Well, if the player's this high, and if I'm allowing the player to be this high no matter what, this is just the license he's got, then you need a player that can sort of cover that sort of left-hand side of the pitch. And this is when the left centre-half becomes so important. This left centre-half will come around sort of here, and his whole job will be covering for the wing-back that's forward. And then sort of eventually, hopefully, the wing-back will be able to get back because you have high fitness. That's the whole idea. He'll get back and they'll sort of settle back into the 5-back shape. But for a bit, this left centre-half will need to be about here. And for that player, I want him to be ideally sort of left-footed and confident at playing sort of on the left-hand side. I don't mind mind if he's right-footed as long as he's sort of played in a three-back on the left-hand side in the past. This will then sort of shuffle across the central centre-half when England have the ball, because you'll need to come across because now there's a massive gap there, and that central centre-half ideally just needs to be a bit of a leader, but also very confident with playing out from the back to into these sort of midfield areas, and there's a lot of areas for the central centre-half to pass into. This will then obviously move the right centre-half across as well, because then you've got that same exact gap. So the right centre-half will then move across. Once again, I need him to be pretty good with his feet, and he needs to be confident at playing and sort of on the wide side of a centre-half, and ideally a player with a bit of pace, because he's going to be having to be covered for the right wing-back, who's also got a bit of a licence to go forward, but not so much. This right wing-back's sort of crucial for how England are going to play at this World Cup, in my opinion, if they went to this, because England need this right wing back to be creative, a very good passer, but also excellent on the ball and able to build up play for England, because you can't have both going forward, because then you're starting to get issues of we've got too many players wide going forward, and it becomes issues in sort of build up. So this is the right wing back will be all about the build up for England. Moving into left centre half, and you'll be able to see the nominations in the emergency section. As I said earlier, this is such a unique position, I thought I might as well start with this and then build from there. So starting off with big Dan Burn. I mean, Dan Burn's done so well to get into this England squad, and the reason I thought he could fit this role is because he's left-footed, he's big, he's good in the air, but also he's confident in going into left back, as he did it many times in Newcastle. But I am going to put him in contention, because I'm right about his ability on the ball, and I actually think we've got better options for this role. On to Levi Colwill, and I know he's coming off an ACL injury he's just got recently, and he won't be fit for a lot of the season, but he will be fit for the World Cup, and that's what I've done off, and I still think he could fit this role perfectly, and for that reason I would still select him, because he's left-footed, he's a left centre-half, and he can also play left back. He'd also do the perfect role, I think, in covering for that left wing back. I think he's perfect for this position, I truly do, and for that reason I'm adding him for the squad. As well as that, he's a brilliant passer, and he's also brilliant at tackling and blocking the ball. Then on to Marc Guéhi. I mean, Marc Guéhi, even though he's right-footed, actually suits this position once again very well. He's played on the left side of the fence for Oliver Glasner now for 1.5 years. He's a leader, he's a captain, and I think it's exactly what England need. So once again, I am adding him. And unfortunately, that does mean for Luke Shaw, he will miss out. And that is because he's been injury prone, but also I'm not sure if he's quite got that ability to play as the left centre half. I know he's done it for Manchester United to a very good level, but I'm still not convinced he could do it for England. For that reason, for this section, he is going to miss out. But I am going to actually move Cole up to starting 11, because that's who I would start with for England. Moving into the right centre half, but also the central centre half. Once again, you're about to see these players in the emergency area. I think a couple of these players are probably only suited to doing the right centre half, and maybe some of them are only suited to the central centre half, but I've just included them together because I think they're all very similar. First of all, I'm actually moving Marc Guéhi up to the starting 11, because he would actually be my starting right centre half, but he's going to be cover for the left centre half if Levi Colwill does get injured. So onto the players you could potentially have, you've got Jared Braithwaite, who had a very good year for Everton last year, but he's just going to miss out on the squad. I think there's just slightly better options. He's a bit inexperienced. I think it's just a bit too soon, and I think there's players that probably suit the system just a bit better, so I'm going to leave him in emergency. Harry Maguire, and this is going to be my bit of a weird nomination. Even though Harry Maguire doesn't really suit this role, he's not probably the best for it. You know what Harry Maguire is good for? Last 20 minutes, just heading the ball away. That's what Harry Maguire is, a leader. Even though he may have struggled as Man United captain, I still think Harry Maguire has got a value in the squad to come on for the last 20 minutes. And that's what I mean by trying to pick players for a reason. I think that's the way you could use someone like Maguire. So I'm going to add him to the squad. Then on to Jarell Quansah. Once again, I think it's just too early, and I'll put him in contention. Maybe if he has a great year at Leverkusen, he could get in there. Then on to John Stones. John Stones is going to go straight into the starting 11. I know there's doubts about Stones, and I do also doubt John Stones to an extent. I think he's a good player that's just struggled with injuries, even though he did struggle at the Euros last time for England. He's brilliant with the ball at his feet. He can step up to midfield, and he also could be covered for that one of those holding mid positions if needed. I think John Stones is perfect for this England system, and he'll be playing as the central centre-half. Then on to Trevor Chalobah. I'm going to, for now, put him in contention because I don't think he's ready for this role. So for the final two centre-half options, I've got Kyle Walker, Israel Concert, Ben White and Joe Gomez. For starters, Kyle Walker, nowhere near the squad. Even as a right centre-half, he still doesn't get picked. He's been made too many mistakes recently. He's clearly getting too old and he's too slow. It's that simple. Nope, nope, nope. Don't pick Walker at Tuchel. Don't make that mistake that Southgate made at the last Euros, which quite literally cost them in the final. Then you look at Israel Konsa. I think Israel Konsa goes so under the radar as a defender. I think he's arguably England's third, or maybe even maybe the fourth best defender. The only reason Colwell's really been picked over him for me in the starting 11 is because of the role that Levi Colwell can do in this team. For that reason, I'm going to definitely pick Israel Konsa in the 26-man squad. And now I think it comes down to sort of this leaves you with either Joe Gomez or Ben White. I'm just going to put bias aside. I really like Joe Gomez as a player, and he was really close to getting in for me. But I do think Ben White is the better defender. I think he's got a bit more grit about him, and I think he probably suits this team a bit better. And if I had to call on one of them right now, I would call on Ben White. And there is a high chance he would play quite a lot of minutes in this team. Because if you look at it, Levi Colwill and John Stones are very injury prone, and they're in the starting 11. That means this sort of player could easily get called up. So I'm going to go with Ben White and leave Joe Gomez as the emergency centre-half option. Into the right wing back, and for this position I'm looking for something very specific. As I said earlier, a player that's good on the ball, good at passing and good at crossing. That is exactly what I want from this position. If you look at the players that this sort of applies to, I would say Kieran Trippier tick, Reece James tick, Trent tick, Livramento tick and Lewis tick. So I've tried to find 5 players I think could really suit this role. Kieran Trippier though, I'm going to put in no chance because I think all 4 are actually better than him. I think he's too old now and I don't think it's going to work out for him. Rico Lewis, I think really suits what I've just said. I don't want the player to invert though, really, and that's what Lewis does more of. I'm actually still want him to hold the width on the right hand side because otherwise England will lack width and there'll be too many players in the middle of the pitch. And I don't know if that quite suits Rico Lewis, so I'm going to put him in contention. And then finally, Reece James, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Tino Livramento. I think it's pretty obvious that Reece James and Alexander-Arnold are the better players in terms of their delivery, their set pieces, but also that sort of passing, time on the ball, composure, all that sort of thing. Progressing the ball, all those sort of attributes I want from this position. So I am going to leave Livramento in emergency and move James and Trent Alexander-Arnold up. So what do I want from this position in terms of who would I prefer to start? Well, for Trent, I think against the weaker teams, you could justify Trent's selection because you're going to have more of the ball and he's a little bit weak defensively, but you'll be all right because it's against a weaker team and he's more likely to unlock the game. But against the strongest teams, against the better sort of wingers and against a player that's a bit more better in terms of tracking back and getting back in time, I've gone with Reece James because I'm prioritising this as against a good team. Onto the left wing back position, and as I said earlier, I'm really prioritising a player that can get up fast, but also counter-attack with real skill and quality. I want this player to basically be a winger, really attacking and really attacking-minded. So, who have you got? Ben Chilwell, Lewis Hall, and Lewis Scully. I'm just going to rule out Chilwell immediately and just put him in no chance. He's not good enough for now, and that just leaves you with Lewis Scully and Lewis Hall. Or does it? Does it leave you with a wildcard shout of Bukayo Saka? This is who I would pick in the starting 11 as this position. And this is how you get an attacking outlet from left wing back. Saka has done this for Arsenal, but he's also done this under Arteta recently, not just as a left back, but also as a winger. He tracks back a lot, Saka, and it's a criticism of mine of Arteta. But I can't lie, in this sort of situation, I think Saka suits it perfectly. He gets up and down quickly, he's very fast, he's good going forward, he's got a good cross, delivering into the strikers, into those sort of areas. And I know what people say, oh, you're not getting the best out of one of the best players in this lineup, Saka. But I think this will allow for every other player to play better. That leaves you with either Lewis Scully or Lewis Hall as the second choice left wing back. And for this, I'm actually going to go with Lewis Scully. I know it's a bit interesting considering Lewis Hall, you'd probably say, is the better player going forward, probably more suited to a 5-back system. But I am aware what happens if this doesn't work out and you want to go into a 4-2-3-1. Well, Lewis Scully is the better defensive option in that situation. So for that reason, I'm going to pick Lewis Scully over Lewis Hall, even though Lewis Hall is better going forward. moving into the midfield, where I think England are actually pretty weak now. I know previously it's been a real strength, but I sort of look at this and I go, I think there's a bit of a lack of squad depth now. So what do I actually want from these two midfielders? I'm going to treat these players like eights, but there's a couple of skills I would like from each one. I want one to be extremely good in the tackle, very good, very robust, but also a decent passer. The one next to him though has to be a very good passer. He can be a bit more creative, maybe not as good in the tackle, but he's very good at creating chances for the rest of the team to then hopefully find the player at left wing back, which we now know will be Bukayo Saka, to really unleash. Moving into the midfield, where I've got the two eights to select, I'm going to select four midfielders. Ideally, I want two that are defensive minded and two that are better at progressing the ball forward. Straight away, just straight in the starting 11, Declan Rice. He could probably be arguably used as both, but where I think he'll suit this England team better is that ball-winning midfielder. Then I've also got Ryan Yates, which I know will go down a bit weird, but I'm actually going to add him in as a potential option because I think he's probably the closest profile we've got to Declan Rice in midfield. Then you've got James Gardner. James Gardner, I think, has been very good for Everton, but I'm straight away just going to put him in no chance. I just don't think he's quite got the quality. Jordan Henderson, no chance. I just wanted to put him in just to say this. I really like Jordan Henderson, and I like his leadership. He's been a very good player for England, but also for Liverpool, the team I've supported. But I just don't think we need a player like this anymore, especially in a position where I actually think we're quite light, and we are needing midfielders that are good at moving the ball quickly and good in. Jordan Henderson, straight away, no chance. I actually really like Jordan Henderson, and I did sort of just put this in just because I think people will be going, oh, where's Henderson, considering he's just been picked for England? The simple answer is Henderson's not good enough for this level anymore. He's a decent player, Jordan Henderson, and I really liked him at Liverpool and England, but he's not good enough to play for England anymore. And he's also doesn't suit either of these two positions. I've just said I want a midfielder that can either progress the ball or be very good in tackle, and I don't think he's really incredible at either. Then I've got Adam Wharton. Adam Wharton, I'm straight away putting in the 26-man squad. I'll discuss if he's in the starting 11 later. Adam Wharton might be the most underrated midfielder in the world. I truly believe that. He's that good that Real Madrid want him, but people underrate him and continue to do. People don't even have the England 11. It's just ridiculous. He's one of the best at that position. And do you know why? It's because he plays for Crystal Palace. People that play for Crystal Palace just get underrated over and over again. I'm probably going to go into one soon that people will find pretty controversial and say I'm doing the exact same thing. Looking at Archie Gray, I'm just for now going to set in contention. Archie Gray's clearly a talent and he's a very good player, but for now I just can't see him being picked. Elliot Anderson, I'm going to put in as a potential option. I truly believe Elliot Anderson could be a part of this midfield. Conor Gallagher, I'm going to put in contention. I don't think he quite has the technical ability to play in this midfield, which I'm looking for. Curtis Jones is pretty similar, but I think he's better than Gallagher, so I'm going to put him in emergency. And then Kobbie Mainoo, who I'm going to add as one of the three that I'm going to talk about. So, who do I pick out of Ryan Yates, Elliot Anderson, and Kobbie Mainoo, who are the three actual nominations? And Curtis Jones, but... So, who do I pick out at Ryan Yates, Elliot Anderson, and Kobbie Mainoo? First of all, this is not exactly the ideal midfielders you'd want to be talking about. You probably want to be talking about a bit more talented midfielders than this, ideally for an England squad. Straight away, Yates and Anderson. Adam Yates is only in there because he's actually the closest player I could generally find to a Declan Rice, sort of a good destroyer in midfield, and that's why he's there. But I'm just going to rely on the fact that Declan Rice stays fit, and I'm instead going to pick Elliot Anderson, Kobbie Mainoo, and Wharton will go into the starting 11. I'm a little bit worried about Mainoo because he's not playing for Manchester United, but I think by that time either Ruben Amorim will be sacked or Mainoo will be somewhere else out on loan because he will be playing football somewhere else. I've seen this sort of thing of, can Kobbie Mainoo play maybe in this midfield too? Will he be able to? Because that's what he struggled to do at Manchester United. I think he'll be fine, absolutely fine under a different coach like Tuchel. I think he'll get the best out of him. moving into the left 10 and the right 10, and these roles are going to be completely different even though they look identical right now. Because Saka's got this sort of license to go this high and the centre halves then move across, then there's no point of sort of having a left 10 that likes to drift out to the left hand side or moves more out to the side. What I actually want from this left 10 is to be very good into the central areas, more like here, very good in the pockets, very good at dribbling, very good at sort of helping back in the midfield if needed, and sort of operating in between the centre half and the holding midfielder and creating space like a traditional number 10 would. 10 to the right 10 is actually completely different once again, because the right 10 I actually want to pretty much play on the right hand side because they need to drift out to the right. They need to sort of operate in this area because we don't have a right wing back that's flying. He's just going to sort of stay around here. It's going to be like Trent or James, someone that's very good on the ball. This right winger needs to be able to cut inside off the right ideally, so that sort of often means that it's going to have you be used as a left footer position. So then what do you do here? Because there's all this space here. Well, Declan Rice can then move up into sort of this other midfielder, and he's going to be the other box crasher. So now you've got you've got a 10, and then you've got a Declan Rice who is the box crashers. Then in this midfielder, then Wharton can move across, and then you've sort of formed your sort of team, and this is sort of how it will line up finally. In the emergency section, you'll start to see who I think could potentially be that left 10, a box-crashing midfielder who's also great at dribbling and great in the tight spaces. So, I've got Grealish, Eze, Morgan Rogers and Bellingham. I'm actually selecting 3 of these players because I also want one of them that can drift off to the left and play on the left wing when I want to switch to that 4-2-3-1, or when Tuchel wants to switch to that 4-2-3-1. As well as that, I'm actually just going to pick a normal left winger at some point as well, so that's another option because I want this squad to be really adaptable. So we've got Grealish, obviously. I actually am going to put Grealish in this squad, and he will be in the squad as that third choice player that can always also play off the left. I think he's going to really excel at Everton this season, and I think he'll prove why he should be in the squad. On to Eze, and I'm just not going to pick Eberechi Eze, unfortunately. I know he's a great player, but there's just better options, I think. And also, he's just a bit inconsistent. That's why I picked Grealish, is I think Grealish is going to really excel at Everton this season. We don't really know how Eze is going to be playing come the end of the season. He's very much, he plays great for 3 months. And everyone thinks he's one of the best 10s in the league, and then in a couple of months he'll have a real quiet spell, and I think he might well be in that quiet spell at Arsenal, and I also think he'll probably struggle to attack and he just won't end up impressing enough to be selected. So I'm going to put him in emergency, but he's probably the one player in this whole emergency section that I would say is incredibly unlucky not to be picked. Morgan Rogers straight in the 26-man squad. What a player Rogers is. Great dribbler. He's great at actually box crashing. Great in those half spaces, tight spaces. This is exactly what I want. And he's good in the middle like a traditional number 10 is. And Jude Bellingham. I mean, I quite literally described Jude Bellingham when I described the box crashing, the dribbling, the ability to be great in spaces, the ability to help out the midfield as well. This is literally Bellingham summed up. And Jude Bellingham is obviously going to be in the starting 11 in this position. Because there's so many attacking options in that left 10, I've actually forgot to include Morgan Gibbs-White, but unfortunately he's only going to be in contention. And I think any other position on the pitch, you go, oh, Morgan Gibbs-White, he has to be in this team. But unfortunately, there's just so many players. You've got Rodgers, you've got Bellingham, you've got Grealish. I'd pick Eze over him as well. And that's the problem for Gibbs-White. I've really tried to pick a system here which I think will get the best out of the left 10 and the right 10. And the right 10s we've got are Foden, Palmer and Harvey Elliott. I think it's pretty obvious it's going to be Foden and Palmer as the 2 first choice options. And once again, I've really tried to bring in a squad and a team that I think could get the best out of these 2 because I think they're essential for England doing well. But who would I start? I'm going to start Cole Palmer. I think in those big moments, Cole Palmer just seems to come up again for Chelsea, but also for England in the last Euros. He could have been the difference between, I think, England winning that Euros if he just got on the pitch more, but Southgate refused to bring him on, in my opinion, too often, and he should have been part of the squad more. Phil Foden, I'm going to add as the 26th-man squad option. I think he's a good player, Phil Foden, but he really hasn't played well recently, and he could get in over Palmer, but for now, you are not in the team. Moving on to the striker, and what I want from the striker is just a striker that's just going to stand up front and put the ball in the back of the net. I'm not too bothered about their build-up play. I'm more worried about their movement, but also their ability to get in behind, maybe their pace, maybe just the overall ability to just sort of get into the right positions to score goals for this England team, because we've just got so many creative qualities with this sort of addition of having a wing back so far up, having the right winger, having the midfielders moving up, and having that creative fullback. We just need someone that can put the ball in the back of the net. Now it gets a bit more interesting, because I just said what I wanted from a number 9 was the exact opposite of Harry Kane. I said I don't want a striker that sort of just stands around, sort of looks to link up play, but I would still select him as my starting 11 striker. But what I would say to him is I would say, look, this is what I want from you. I want you to be sort of just ready to receive the ball and score. I don't want you sort of building up play like you used to. And if he does do that and he continues to do that, then you bring him off immediately for Ollie Watkins, who would be my second choice striker for this England team. And he's the one I'd actually bring on for him. And even if Kane continues to do what I'm not saying that he shouldn't be doing, and Watkins comes on and does exactly what he's supposed to, I'd start Ollie Watkins over him. And then I'm going to pick one more number 9, and that is going to be Ivan Toney. I know Ivan Toney's in Saudi Arabia, but I still think he's been playing very well recently, and he's probably get rewarded for that. He's also a great penalty taker if needed, and he's unlikely to play a huge amount of minutes. And I've just gone with someone I think is quite similar to Kane, someone that's could have hold up the ball, but also get in behind, and that's what I like about the Toney selection. So Solanke will drop to emergency. Now, for you eagle-eyed viewers, you may have noticed that I've still got one more spot left now, and that's because I want a winger who can play in a 4-2-3-1 in case Tuchel wants to make a tactical switch. So I've got Gordon, Rashford, and Bowen. Straight away, unfortunately, Jarrod Bowen, I just want to talk about him for a bit. He's out of the squad, he might even be no chance, because there's just not really a position that suits him. I know he could probably play the right 10 to a decent extent, but I still don't think I still would probably take Elliott. I'd still rather take Elliott, Palmer, and Foden on him. So for now, I'm going to put him in no contention. For you eagle-eyed viewers, you may have noticed that I've actually only selected 25 players, and that is because I'm going to select one more player that can play as a winger on the left-hand side in a 4-2-3-1 in case Tuchel wants to adapt to that, because I think that's very much a possibility with what we discussed about him doing earlier. He likes that sort of 4-2-3-1 when he is behind in games. So you've got Jarrod Bowen. I'm straight away just going to put him in contention. I just think it's so unlikely he gets selected in this team altogether. I think he's more likely to be selected as a right 10 because that sort of suits Bowen's play style a bit more. He's not going to work as like a left winger, and I also don't think he's what I want. I want to pace him behind, because chances are this is a tactical switch that you would make in about the 60th minute. So then you've got Gordon or Rashford. I'm going to back Rashford's Barcelona form to get him through and get him into this England squad as the 26-man squad. Gordon, unfortunately, you miss out, but that's mainly because you're actually playing rather poor recently, Gordon is. But also, I don't think he's actually as threatening as Marcus Rashford is. I think if Rashford gets firing at Barcelona, there is a pretty unstoppable winger. And he's also could be used as a striker at the very last 10 minutes of the game, maybe. I know it's not really his ideal position, but I still think he could do a job there. And that will leave Gordon as an emergency option. Here is the final England squad, and now you can obviously see the depth. So in goal, Pickford, Henderson and Ramsdale in that order. Right wing back, you've got James for the big games, Trent for the slightly smaller games against the weaker opposition, and then you've also got Ben White who can play there. Right centre half, you've got Mark Gahey, Concert and Ben White. Then you've got Stones and Harry Maguire. You could also use Gahey as a central centre half. He's that versatile. Then left centre half, you've got Colwill and Gahey. Left wing back, you've got Saka and Lewis Scully. Remember, their role was to basically fly up and down that left-hand side, and they're given a free role. Then you've got Wharton and Mainu, who are the two playmakers. Adam Wharton is exceptional at this role. Then you've got Rice and Anderson, who have a bit more of a free role. Their job is to more get around this area and be a bit of a box crasher. Left 10, we've already discussed this in depth. This is going to be basically another box crashing role, and your goal is to sort of score goals and get supplied by the left-hand side of Saka and Scully. And you've got Bellingham, Rodgers and Grealish. Right 10, which will operate more into this side of the pitch, you've got Palmer and Phil Foden, two players that will be brilliant in that role. And up front, you've got Harry Kane. If that's not working, you go to a striker that might suit the system better, who gets him behind more, Ollie Watkins. And you've also got Tony and Marcus Rashford, who can play in that way as well. And then this is actually what it will look like if I was to shift to a 4-2-3-1, or Tuchel, sorry, was the shift. So you've got 4-2-3-1. There isn't the 10 there, sorry, that should be, say, 10. So in goal, Pickford. I'll just add it. If you wanted to shift to a 4-2-3-1, then here is the squad and the depth. In goal, you can use Pickford, Henderson and Ramsdale, obviously, once again. Right back, you've got James, Trent, and now Ben White, who's more in sort of a role that he's more familiar with. I would say that I'd probably use Reece James in all games now, because I would worry about Trent even more defensively without that right centre-half cover. Then you've got Mark Gahey, John Stones, Conson White. I mean, that's great depth. On the left-hand side, you've got Colwill, Gahey, and Maguire. If you have to use Gahey, then you can obviously use Stones as the right centre half. I mean, that's just brilliant once again. Left back, Lewis Scully and Colwill. Obviously, no inclusion of Bukayo Saka, and that is just simply because Bukayo Saka is not going to be able to play as a left back, and we'll go into him later. Then in midfield, once again, it's that creative role for Wharton and Mainu, then sort of Rice and Anderson, but they're going to be more defensive this time. They're going to be more ball-winning midfielders, and these players aren't going to be able to go up as high because they don't have as much fullback or defensive cover in centre-half. Then on the wing, you've got Rashford and Grealish. Then you've got, in the 10, Bellingham, Palmer, Rodgers, Foden. I mean, there's so many great options there. Off the right, Saka, Palmer and Foden. Obviously, Saka's moved from left wing back to the right wing because he's more suited to be in that sort of end of the pitch if it was in this sort of formation. And then up front, you've got Kane, Watkins and Tony. Once again, the same idea. If Kane isn't playing well enough, you go to Watkins, and I think it's very similar. England do need a striker that gets in behind because they've got so many good creative players, but they don't have enough people that are there to finish it off sometimes. That's the end of this video. If you enjoyed what you see, please like and subscribe and help support the channel. Please let me know if you enjoyed the video. If you didn't, why did you not enjoy it? And also let me know about, have I made the right decision with going 3 at the back for England? And also let me know who have you included in the squad that I haven't. I know a lot of you are probably going to say Eberechi Eze, and I completely understand, but I just couldn't find a way to get him in. And please let me know what's your thoughts on actually playing this system, as it is quite strange and unique, but I do think it is something that Tuchel could really use.